Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the webinar. This is the platform. Already you have the access to our EUROPARC webinar, Why and How to Make Nature More Accessible. My name is Andris Kleppers. I will be the host of this webinar today, and you are ready for exciting Friday content. We will have 3 presenters today, and those presenters will have a very important message to deliver to you. So first of all, national parks, nature heritage sites and symbolic landscapes, they are our national values and contribute to the quality of life, but they are also an important source for environmental education, recreation and tourism. And the main question for today's webinar is, what are they accessible for all? This why and how to make nature more accessible will try to challenge those answers. So how to get to the nature without the challenges? Is it affecting just those with disabilities? Of course, we know that this is the issue of the much wider society, and this is our responsibility, thinking about the sustainability in development. So adapting environment and services to all is part of sustainability in our societies. As I said, presenters from Finland, Spain and Latvia, 3 presenters will be on our floor today. And before we start, I have some housekeeping rules to deliver to you. So first of all, the webinar is being recorded, and please start or stop your video camera at your convenience. If you don't like that you are filmed, then you can switch off your camera. In the participant list, identify yourself with your name, surname and organization you belong to, if any. And as we know, there were about 500 participants. This makes our webinar very actual for everyone. And we see that at the moment there are about 200 participants in the room already. We will have the questions if the presenters make space after their presentations. Some of the questions will be addressed by me as a moderator directly to them, and I will use your content. So this is one way to participate, but you should write your questions in the chat box of Zoom. So you see it on the right side of your screen, and you can indicate always which speaker should answer that. Obviously, it's the question rises when the presentation goes on, but sometimes probably you think later, but those questions could be addressed to the second part of the webinar. So after all the 3 presentations, we will have some space to make some comments or maybe go live with your questions, so participation is possible. And when participants would like to have this live intervention, that is allowed, but you should raise the hand. The hand button, you will find it. And if you raise your hand, not just like this in the screen, but with the symbol, so the moderators, we will let you in and you can interact live. So those are the general rules. We are ready for about 1.5 hours for a webinar. And during that 1.5 hours, if the question and discussion side will be very active, so we will go a little bit longer depending from your activity as well. So in meanwhile, I should introduce the first speaker, and the first speaker comes from Finland, Sanna Kalmari, accessible travel specialist and travel blogger. And she's a nature lover, writer, and electric wheelchair user, world traveler, and one of the leading experts about accessible tourism in Finland. So, Sanna, if you are ready, then floor is yours. and welcome to everyone to our webinar of EUROPARC. We can launch with the first presentation.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everybody. And thank you for inviting me to this wonderful and very important webinar. I'm Sanna Kalmari, and I'm from Finland. My background here is not from Finland. Palm trees are not part of Finnish landscape, but it's now behind me still. I will focus on my own experiences. I will talk you about the meaning of accessible nature, why it is so important that we all can go to the nature, and why it's a basic human right, and a big part of national identity. And I will also give you some tips of how to make nature more accessible from my perspective. But first, few words about me and my background, so you understand why is it me who is talking to you today. Yes, I work as an accessible travel specialist in Finland. Some people call me also world traveler. I love to travel, and I have traveled a lot around the world and also a lot in Finland. I'm occasionally a tour leader in accessible trips in many countries. I'm educator, inspirer, Bachelor of Social Services, and today here because I'm also a nature lover. I started to write my travel blog 10 years ago, 2011. And today it's the most popular accessible travel blog and also accessible travel resource in Finland. Unfortunately, it's only in Finnish, but you can go and check the photos and maybe get some idea. I write about all the destination I visit, and there are lots of articles about many different countries and destinations, but also a lot articles about Finland. And my readers are very interested to read also about the nature areas and nature trails here in Finland. And they are very, very popular articles. I have a spinal muscular atrophy, and that's why a power wheelchair and a personal care assistant have always been part of my everyday life at home and abroad, indoor and outdoor. I need other person's help around the clock, and that's why assistance is always with me wherever I go. Well, then few things about the country I live in about my dear Finland. It's most forested country in Europe, and forests cover more than 75% of the land area of Finland, which means that the nature really is everywhere. And it is a really big part of our life. For example, I live in Espoo, which is the second biggest city in Finland. It's just next to our capital city of Helsinki. And so it's a big city, but still there are lots of nature. And I have a big forest, for example, just a few hundred meters from my home. And when I started to plan this presentation, for example, I first went to the forest, because that's the thing we do when we want to be alone, when we want to be together with friends or family, when we are happy, when we are sad. We very often go to the nature. When we need inspiration, when we need to focus on something, we go to the nature. That's our thing, and that's a really big part of our identity, that the nature is here around us everywhere. And that's why I think it's very important that we really can go to the nature, that everybody can go to the nature and enjoy it. We have also every man's right here in Finland, which means that all people have the right to enjoy nature anywhere in the Finnish countryside, regardless of land ownership. Of course, we have responsibilities as well, but it means that we can go hiking and we can go and pick the berries or go camping or so on. And it's very important that also people with accessibility needs have those same rights. Wild nature, clean lakes, and sustainability are also reasons to travel to Finland. They are the most the key things why people travel here. And we still have work to do that also people with accessibility needs could come and travel, and we could offer travel packages, accessible packages, so that all the things about the nature trails would be accessible for travelers as well. But I think that's the goal we should go on. In Finland, we have 40 national parks and lots of other parks, nature reserves, and recreation areas. And approximately half of national parks have accessible trails. We have two kinds of accessible trails. We have accessible nature trails and demanding accessible nature trails. And demanding accessible nature trail means that there might be steep slopes or it's not that built, and you might need assistance when you go to the nature or equipment designed for nature. During last years, Metsähallitus Parks and Wildlife Finland has improved the accessibility and also accessibility guidelines in nature together with disability associations. We have had many very successful and good projects, and I think the situation at the moment is quite good. Of course, we have always work to do, and we can improve things, but it is quite good at the moment. There is a link. I can put it to the chat later if you want to go and see how what kind of nature trails we have in Finland. Well, then, what accessible nature means for me. For me, it's important that I can enjoy nature using my own power wheelchair. Because my own chair, my own power wheelchair gives me freedom and my independence. And I like to use it when I go to nature. I think it is really important that we have equipment designed for nature, but the best thing for me is that I can go with my own chair. I like long trails because I have a motor, I have a power, and I can go also routes which are steeper, or if there are slopes, it's not a problem for me. And I like, for example, from 6 to 8 kilometers long trails. But there are a few exceptions when I'm ready to be lifted off from my own wheelchair, especially in wintertime. There's a photo up in the corner where I'm ice fishing a few months ago in Kuusamo, which is a northeast area in Finland. And I went to ice fishing with a company specialized in accessible activities, accessible winter activities as well. And it was a great experience actually to feel the ground under me, totally different way than I feel it when I'm sitting in my wheelchair. I felt the snow totally in a different way, and it wouldn't have been possible to go to the iced lake and deep snow with my own chair. So this kind of sledge gave totally new experience. And also the other picture next to that one, I'm sitting in a glassed sleigh. I'm sitting in my own chair. There was a ramp to the sleigh, and I went to the Northern Light expedition. It was the middle of the night, and unfortunately we didn't see Northern Lights that night. But in that region, it is that you see Northern Lights quite often, and it was amazing experience to go to the middle of the forest, middle of the night, and also trails that are not accessible during the winter time with a wheelchair, but with this sleigh and snowmobile, it was possible to go there. So we need accessible trails, but I think we also need different kind of nature activities and different kind of equipments, and we need both. For me, it's important that I get advanced information to what is ahead of me when I go to the nature trails. For example, if I go to a totally new trail, and it's, let's say, 6 kilometers long, and if I don't have any information advanced, it's a big risk that the first part of the trail is totally accessible, and but then after 5 kilometers, and when there's only 1 kilometer left, there is one part of the trail which is not accessible. There might be rocks or something, and I need to turn around, so and go the same 5 kilometers again. So it will be 10 kilometers totally. So it's very important to get information. I think that is the most important thing. Nature means beauty and inspiration, and also feeling of togetherness. And that's why it's important that you can go together. You can go together with your friends. You can go together with your class or with your family, and you can be together. You can go to the campfire together, and so on. Easy access to campfire is really important for me. I love the sound of the campfire and the smell of it, and it's important that you can really go close to the campfire and prepare the food, for example, by yourself. For me, nature also means, it's hard to explain, but kind of a possibility to strengthen my manage feeling. I survive, I manage, because I think nature doesn't need to offer too easy solutions. I like to challenge myself, and I like the fact that when you go to the nature, you never know what is going to happen there, and it's a big part of it. For me, it's important also that I can use the toilet while in long trails. And for example, if I stay the whole day in the forest or a nature trail, it's important that there is accessible toilet as well. And it's important for me that there's a possibility to enjoy nature in every season. We have in Finland very beautiful 4 seasons, and they're totally different. And winter is challenging because there are usually snow and lots of snow, and then that's the most difficult part of the year for our wheelchair users. But that's the part of that's the season when you can use equipment like different kind of sledges. Then a few tips for you, for everybody, for me, for you, for everybody. People have very unique needs for accessibility. I think many of you already know that, but it's always important to remember. It's very difficult and dangerous to say that this trail is good for you, and this is for you, and this is for you, because you never know what the people need and what the people want. It's much more easier for everybody if you describe the trail and also the services around it with the text, with the photos. Photos are really important. Of course, not for everybody. We have people with visual impairments, and photos might be difficult for them, but and we need the text as well. But quite often, one photo can give much more information than the text. So describe the trails, use the text, use the photos as well as possible, so each person can make the decision whether it's not suitable or not. Everybody can make the decision by themselves. It's very important that we have information. Like I said, I think it's one of the most important things. And it's important that you find the information from the website of the nature destination. Usually they have a website, but also of the website from the website of the local tourism board. Because for tourists, I think that's very important. If I go to a different country, different city, let's say if I go to Latvia, and I don't know what is there, I usually go to visit Latvia or a website like that, and find the information there. I want to find the information, what kind of accessible activities or accessible sightseeing and nature trails this country have. So it's important that also local tourism boards give the information. And it's very important to remember that to take care that also people who are working in customer service know the details of accessibility. Because unfortunately, quite often I call somewhere, I need more specific information, and the people working in the customer service are like, oh, I have never heard about it. Oh, sorry, I have never thought about it. Maybe, I don't know. And because they have not got the information and education for accessibility questions. So it's important that they also know. People with accessibility needs want to make choices just like everybody else. People are different, and we have different kind of nature lovers and different kind of hikers. We have people who want to go for a 1 week hike. We have people who want to go for a day. We have people who want to go for a few hours. And it's the same thing with the people with accessibility needs. People want different things. And that's why it's important that we have different kind of accessible trails as well, and different kind of accessible activities, short ones and long ones, easy and rough ones, trails for a short trip, day trip, and also overnight trip. And for tourists, it's very important that the whole travel chain is accessible, that the pre-information is accessible, accommodation is accessible, activities, guided tours, food providers, and so on. Because no one travels just for, let's say, 400 meters nature trail. It might be a big part of the trip, but they need also different things around the nature experience. So we need to take care of a whole travel chain when we are talking about tourists. And my last slide and last thing will be this. I hope we could be proud of our accessible nature and let the whole world knows about it, because in many countries we have already really good solutions, but still it's very hard and very difficult to find the information and know about them. So I think we should be more proud of the nature we already have and the accessible solutions we already have, so that everybody could get the information and come and enjoy them. Thank you. There are my websites if you want to learn some Finnish, and also my social media and LinkedIn pages if you want to follow me.
Sanna, kiitos. Thanks a lot for your presentation, and we have a few questions for you, and that's good that people understood. They can write in the chat box their questions. We are sorting them out, and a few questions we can raise right now, and some of them will be related to the discussion later on. And I would encourage the presenters that you can answer writing in the chat box as well, so that we have two communication streams. One is in front of us and one can go there. That's a bit about rules. But Sanna, there was a question. What is your, let's say, the most brilliant experience from nature visiting, where you would say that was the top benchmark for other national parks, how it was organized and how you felt there? What you can point about that?
Oh, it's always difficult to say on only one, because I have so many great nature experiences, and I like the fact that they are all different, and because I go to the nature for different reasons and different situations, and yeah, I cannot say only one.
But okay, let's say people are asking about top 3 keywords. There are so many national parks here. What would be your advice? You have given already so many suggestions how to be more accessible, but what would be those 3 keywords, in which areas they should really look for accessibility when we think about national parks?
I think the very important thing is that we have those choices and varieties, and the main problem in Finland, and I think also in many other countries as well, is that the nature trails are very short. The accessible trails, I think approximately accessible nature trails in Finland are about maybe 700 meters long. So if you really want to go for a day, it is quite short. It's only like a short while when you go around it, and that's one thing we should focus on.
Good. Even with that one, people are making a lot of comments. They like your positive attitude and proactivity. But
thank you. I will read them. I couldn't do it while I was reading.
I have the last question right now, and then we will let the next speaker, and a few questions we can address to the discussion afterwards. From your experience, how would you inspire people with accessibility needs to overcome fear of coping in nature, which may be scary, so that some people even don't try? Would you suggest something how to cope with that, how to inspire them?
We would need more inspiration, and I think it's very important that we have people with special needs, that they can be seen, that we have photos of people with different kind of special needs in the nature, and articles and everything. I think it's very important that it's that everybody can see that it's possible, because people disabled people, for example, who haven't been in the nature, it might be very scary. They might be scared, and they may, it's possible that they don't know that it's possible. So we need more inspiration, more articles, more photos, more everything.
Thank you. Sanna Kalmari from Finland, that was the first presenter. Thanks a lot. We will bridge to the next one. In the meanwhile, I see that there are more than 240 people in the room. The EUROPARC webinar gets wider. Many of you send the comments from Croatia, Kosovo, Rome, or Mallorca, Denmark, Italy. I saw a few of national parks here, Parco Agricola, Sud Milano, Žemaitija National Park. That's good. This is the right audience to speak about accessibility. We warm up for the next presenter, and I should say that we will go even deeper in the same topic. And Daphne Farrell-Liado, public use and environmental education technician from Spain, will be the next. And she has a background in political science and extensive experience in the field of environmental education program management. She currently works for the Natural Park Network of Barcelona Provincial Council, and she coordinates accessibility projects and services. Specifically, she's thinking about nature education, and she is a passionate nature lover and strong believer in everyone's right to enjoy the nature equally. So Daphne, if you are ready, you can share your screen and we are ready for the next presentation. And for all the participants, keep on going, making own your greetings in the chat box, but also some questions either for Sanna, who has already presented, or for Daphne for the next presentation.
Okay, 1 minute please, because I have some problems to share my screen. Can you see it?
We see that you started to share.
Yeah?
Yeah, we should be patient a little bit. So it's there.
Yeah, can you see it? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, then thank you, Andres, for your introduction, for your presentation, and good afternoon, everybody. I'm Daphne Farrell, a technician of public use and environmental education in the Natural Parks Network of Barcelona Provincial Council. And in this presentation, I am going to explain our experience and work in the field of accessibility to protected areas. Let me say first that, as Sanna said, we understand accessibility as a right of all people to enjoy nature equally, and all our efforts are aimed at achieving this goal. In figures, Natural Parks Network consists of 12 protected areas that covers approximately 100 hectares divided among 100 municipalities. This represents 22% of Catalan territory, where 70% of the population of Catalonia lives. The network has 218 signposted trails, totally 2,100 kilometers. And all of these trails, we have 6 accessible itineraries and 2 practicable. Okay. To provide service to this local population and all visitors, the Natural Parks Network has 144 facilities of public use and environmental education that attend more than 600,000 users annually. That's a lot. Although many of our programs and services took into account accessibility criteria from the beginning, it was in 2005 that accessibility was introduced to the network in a planned way, thanks to the financial support of the social branch of a bank, La Caixa. We can structure the efforts to guarantee accessibility in 3 big blocks: education, environmental programs and services, teaching materials and resources, and accessible and practicable itineraries. Regarding educational environmental programs and services, the Natural Parks Network offers two big scholar programs addressed to upper primary cycle. Coneguem els nostres parcs, Get to Know Our Parks in English, and Viu al Parc a l'Escola, Experience the Park at School. Broadly speaking, these two programs consist of a first classroom session led by an environmental educator and a day off doing activities in the park, a natural itinerary in the case of Get to Know Our Parks, and different activities around biodiversity, landscape, or cultural heritage in the case of Experience the Park at School. The final goal of both programs is to make known the natural and cultural values of the park in order to promote its esteem and protection. To give you an idea of their magnitude, in these programs participate more than 400 schools and around 12,000 children every year. If from the total, around 3.5% of these kids has any sensorial, physical, or intellectual disability. From the beginning, almost 40 years ago, both programs have been inclusive, providing equal service to children with functional diversity in ordinary schools. That means that all the activities are thought from an inclusive point of view in order to all children can participate and enjoy equally doing doing the activities using, if they needed, some support materials. Such as suitcases for children with files of flora and fauna files, or using the Joalette. The Joalette is a kind of wheelchair that allows to follow the activity on any path or terrain. These programs are addressed to special education centers too. In this case, all the activities, itineraries, and teaching materials are adapted for kids with any disability. It is important to know that, as we will see later, we have a lot of resources and support materials, but in the schooler programs, the most important figure is the educator, the person who has to develop the activity, adapting it to the different profiles and needs of the students. In this sense, the Natural Parks Network work with companies and entities in the environmental sector with a highly qualified and motivated human team that add a touch of quality and affection to all our activities. And apart from the school programs, we also offer 3 theatrical routes to all types of audience, familiar audience too, but facilitate especially the access and participation of people with functional diversity. These theatrical visits wants to give life to the natural, cultural and ethnographic heritage and allow visitors to discover their origins and evolution in a pleasant way. To reinforce the effective link with the space and generate an attitude of respect towards it. We have here a different image from the school's programs, the figure of the educator, reduced groups in the case of special education centers, support material in Braille for kids with visual diversity, the Joalette here driven by volunteers, teachers, or even classmates, manipulative and artistic activities. And here we have pictures of the theatrical routes. One route is around water, another is based on a famous figure of a bandit, and the last one is around the 5 cents. As we can see, all the paths are accessible and could be easily reached for all kind of people, maybe with some help. Regarding to the second line of action, together with education, environmental programs and services, we have teaching materials and resources. We can, Okay. We can highlight the efforts to adapt all the teaching materials used in the school programs, and also to create new materials to facilitate learning to kids with any special need. The major part of these materials are available too in the information points of the park that also have other adapted materials such as tactile maps of the area, dossiers of signposted itineraries, 3D embossed maps. All this material is available to visitors in order to they can plan the trails. We also dispose of a children's book collection in Braille with 12 different titles. In these pictures, we can see some samples of the suitcases with files of flora and fauna, with sounds and smells, with tactile image and Braille characters. All these support resources are used in a playful side by the educator to help kids to identify animals and plants and to generate dynamics of learning and reflection around this. We have here also an example of the children book collection, La Xara i el Pau, and a specific guide elaborated for the program Let's to Know Our Parks. Another typology of resources to support the access to the natural areas to people with any physical or sensorial disability are the handbikes, jolets, third wheels, directional bars. All this material can be requested on site, always better in advance, by filling a long form. We have here some examples of handbike. The handbike is an adapted bike suitable for mountain and slope without significant difference, and third wheels. These are front wheels adapted to conventional chair wheels that can be adjusted to most of them so that the user does not have to change seat, adapting its own to a more suitable use for mountain slopes, as long as the gradient are moderate. And here we have the Joalette. It is an all-terrain wheelchair with a single wheel. It is a kind of combination between a trolley and a stretcher. It allows a practice of hiking to everybody with a physical disability or reduced mobility, but always with the help of 2 or more expert companions. In this sense, the use of a Joalette is not a single activity, but a social one. A Joalette brings together family, friends, and volunteers that share effort, but also satisfaction with the user. To carry out this hiking service to those who request it in advance, Barcelona Provincial Council works with different environmental entities that carry out between 15-20 trips per year in total. I have to say again that all the people involved are very, very motivated, and they are very proactive, showing this service of guidance to different collectives of people with any physical disability, especially between special education schools. Of course, it is a free service for the users. You can also loan directly the Joalette without asking the service, but in this case, it will be necessary to accredit previous experience and knowledge. And in this sense, we also offer training in the handling of the Joalette, whoever asks. And finally, we have here the Directional Bar or Mountain Bar, that is a support material for blind people. This bar is currently used in mountain racing and consists of a wooden bar, 205 to 3 meters long. And it's used for 2 people that are placed at the ends of the bar, and a blind person who is placed in the middle. The person in front is the guide, and has to anticipate irregularities, ascents and descents of the path, and other important information to help to regulate the effort of all participants along the route. And at last, we have also a third block of resources with tactile interpretative mural and tactile maps. The murals gives to the visitors information about the most relevant cultural, natural, or architectural elements of itineraries, like one in the picture that is all lime oven. And we can find all these murals along the different accessible trails of the parks. And on the other hand, we can also have an integrated version in ink, relief, and braille of schematic plans of our parks. You can find them in some environmental education facilities, as well as in the main information offices of the parks. And finally, we have some complementary resources, such as the website of our project of accessibility, and a video, and a very interesting video. This video, let me see. Can you see the video? No? Well, it doesn't matter. It's a video that follows all the standard levels according to the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. Sorry. Sorry. Vale. Well, as I was saying, this video has a standard level AAA, AAA, according to our content accessibility guidelines. The user can adapt all the options to its own needs. You can have sign languages, transcription, audio description. You also can modify the speed of the images. I highly recommend to watch it, also to see the work we are developing in the accessibility field in our parks. And going back, together with education, environmental programs, teaching materials, we also have all the task of adaptation, some itineraries of the natural parks. Okay. Well, for us, the law of 2014 of October on accessibility is an indispensable document in this field because it specifies some aspects that affect the park very directly, such as the need for each protected nature area to have accessibility itineraries. We don't have enough time to develop here all the features of this law, only mention that it established the need of an accessibility and maintenance plan, the creation of adapted itineraries and training courses for the staff involved in the information facilities or in the environmental programs. Regarding itineraries, the law established two types, accessible and practicable. As you probably may know, an accessible itinerary is the one that guarantees autonomous, safe, and comfortable use for our people. And a practicable one is the one that presents added values for a specific group, but is not accessible to everybody, to everyone autonomously. In the network, we have parks with one or more accessible itineraries, but we also have parks that do not have any. The importance of such equipment is crucial for us and makes it worthwhile to fight for its existence, and especially now that it seems that it will be mandatory by law. However, it's a very, very high investment, not always easy to reach for a local administration like us. The cost of adapting the itineraries to the need of the slope and compaction of the sun is important, around 60,000 euros per kilometer. However, we are working together with the manager of each of the parks to identify new trails to increase the network of accessibility routes. And we have some examples of our itineraries in Garraf, Montnera, Montseny, different parks, and here are the two practicable itineraries. One of them is a sensorial itinerary. And already to finish, highlight again that the Natural Parks Network has developed this entire project in narrow collaboration with local environmental entities, and I don't want to fail to mention them. So thank you to all them for their work and to all you for your attention. Thank you very much.
Daphne, thanks a lot. That was loved by public. We got a lot of comments. That's a good hands-on approach, a lot of good examples. And wonderful that EUROPARC webinar is such a wise network, because many of you from participants could be in front of the stage today and share your own examples. And we appreciate that you not only raise the questions, but you write, this is the Swedish example about the blue box, and here is the web. This is the Swiss example, and you share your knowledge and your examples. So we try to be rich in those two-way communications. Keep on doing that. Please write also your benchmark examples from your countries. Daphne, we have a few short questions to you about joaletas. You said that you rent them out. Who is doing that? Is it a visitor center? Is it a municipality service, or that's part of the business for somebody?
No. It's a municipality service. We loan it, the joalette, in the information points of our parks. You can ask it in advance with a service of hiking that is carried out for entities, environmental entities that the Barcelona Provincial Council has already contracted, but it's a free service to all the users of the parks who ask for it.
Okay, and do you use international language for your materials and all the signage, or that's in Catalan or in Spanish?
Well, the most part of the materials are in Catalan, are in Spanish, but you can also find some materials in English. But we have a lot of work to do in this area to translate all the materials or resources to other languages.
And the last, there were a few comments made from Germany, and somebody agreed that probably similar situation is in Spain and particularly in Catalonia as well, that there is a trend that certain trails, they stay as it is, but people are making more forest roads. And those forest roads, they attract or advertise as hiking and mountain biking trails. And sometimes probably where the danger comes that they use kind of a word of accessibility just to make some other projects running. Could you just shortly comment on it? But I would like that we replace this commentary to the final discussion as well. Do you notice that kind of trend in Catalonia, that there are more forest roads instead of really hiking trails?
Andres, I will need that you resume the question because I don't understand very well what are you asking to me.
It's okay. I guess we will switch this to the end of the discussion, because I think those who raise that question, they know the issue very well. And I know that from Latvia, we have that kind of problematic as well, that that people, they say, yeah, we have a good network of accessible roads, but they are not attractive. They are not as walking paths. But oh, okay, let's keep it for a free commentary afterwards.
Okay,
thank you, Daphne, for your presentation. And I already see that some are continuing to ask the questions to Sanna, and Sanna is already answering. So Daphne, you can also sort out some chat box questions and probably give some answers. Otherwise, at the end of the presentations or in the summary of the webinar, where the people will look through some of the questions and comments and give some more content to it. So we are ready for the third presentation and the last before the open discussion. And that will, if we went from Nordic countries to Mediterranean to Catalonia, now we are back in the middle. So more north to Latvia. And the next speaker will be Alice Luse, about accessible nature tourism and trails as a practitioner. And she's a nature enthusiast and passionate hiker herself, in everyday work implementing regional nature access projects at Kurzeme planning region, the western part of Latvia. She cooperates also with some NGO, as we know, Apērons is one of them in Latvia. And they have created accessible trail information platform about all accessible objects in Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, and Finland. So more than 100 trails on that website. So Alice, much more about your projects and experience already in the presentation. If you are ready, then the floor is yours.
Thank you, Andres. Yes, hello to everybody. I'm really pleased to be here and to talk to you and share some good practice examples, I hope, that we have done in this project. So I'm a project leader on the Nature Access to All project that we are implementing together with partners from Finland and Estonia. In my everyday work, I deal with nature tourism projects in Kurzeme planning region, so it's the western part of Latvia. And yes, I'm a passionate hiker. I love being in nature, and I love to accomplish different nature trails. I've done a lot of them, really, and trails are also part of my work. I'm doing a lot of inspections to collect the data on trails, and as Anders already mentioned, this Apērons platform, I am also inputting or entering information there on any accessible trail that I find. So yeah, this is my passion, and over these years working with accessibility projects and issues, this has become some kind of an obsession for me, because even when I'm on a weekend on a leisure trip, I'm still automatically assessing the accessibility level of the trail, and that's like in my blood already. So there are few basic tools that you would need to basically assess how accessible this trail is, and this is the inclinometer and simple measuring tape. Because when you are on the trail and you are not using a wheelchair, for example, yourself, you will never understand how actually accessible this trail is. So you need some kind of an instrument to measure everything, to get the centimeters, to get the degrees for the slopes and so on, so that you can actually see whether these comply with the guidelines, and then you can somehow sort this trail into one or a different category. And this is actually a good question. about other countries, probably it differs a little bit, because I heard that in Spain you have this different accessibility levels with AAA and so on. But for example, in our countries, in Latvia, Finland, and Estonia, we have made common guidelines where we where we presume that an accessible trail could be a trail with a slope no more than 8%, and this is for a person to accomplish on his own, so to say. But maximum for a person to accomplish with the help of an assistant could be 15%. So what if the slope is 16%? What then? And what if there's, for example, on some stretch, some small step or some rocky surface, but otherwise you seem that the trail could be fine? And this was my question to Jurdis, which is my accessibility expert from NGO Operans that we are cooperating with when we started doing trail inspections together. So I asked him, Jurdis, how can you actually assess how this trail is accessible? Is it accessible? Is it partly accessible, demanding? How to actually know that? And then he said, you know, this is a question I'm searching the answer for more than 10 years already. So basically, as you can see, there's no black and white. So don't be afraid yourself of assessing your trails and not knowing maybe what or how this is accessible, because you know, this is true. The majority of trails are not perfect, and that's normal. And that's assessment should be based on a set of criteria and basically common sense. The aim is also not to make all trails accessible, because nature is nature, and landscape has land relief has its preconditions, so to say. And however, the accessibility improvements should be pursued if they are possible and efficient, of course. So now a few words about the project, why we started it and why the Central Baltic region was of particular importance for us. While studying statistics, we realized that the Central Baltic region countries are among the top countries in the world with the highest percentage of seniors. And as you know, of course, the accessibility does not relate just to a person with disability. It's actually a huge group of people. And also we learned from statistics that our countries are among the top 5 countries in Europe with the largest disability prevalence. And there's also this trend is that these figures are growing every year. As I was talking about other groups which accessibility is important to, it's of course also parents traveling, for example, with baby strollers. These are people with temporary injuries. For example, if you broke a leg, you still want to go to nature. These are, for example, pregnant women. These are people with obesity. And basically, we could see that really in our countries, this is a huge, crucial issue to work on. And then partners from our 3 neighboring countries, we came together with this project idea of the joint project to create a chain of accessible tourism destinations. And with maybe a bit modest ambition of steadily becoming one of the most accessible nature destinations in Europe. So let's see how we will manage with that, but you have to dream. And in the project, what we did, the idea was to somehow to prove and show that accessibility is not something overexpensive and complicated. What we tried to do in this project was to show that you can reach some improvements at existing trails, not necessarily creating new ones, and already small improvements can lead to such a big difference when the trail becomes more and more accessible. So this is the whole project team here in this picture. including also local coordinators from the sites that we selected in the project for improvements, municipalities and local NGOs. But basically the core team are 5 partners. It is we as the Kurzeme planning region from Latvia, and the other partners are West Estonia Tourism Association from Estonia, Metsähallitus, or Parks and Wildlife Finland, Pärnu Municipality, and Estonian Environmental Board. As part of our core team working on the project, we work hand in hand with the local NGOs and local accessibility experts. And as I noticed in the chat, there was a question, or probably like more issue raised, that accessibility in many cases is not well done. And it's like you do something when you do not actually know is it right or not, because you haven't tried it yourself. That is why it is really important to involve in your accessibility improvement endeavors also these disabled persons, and of course work hand in hand with local NGOs that represent people with disabilities, because they have all the knowledge. They can assist you how to do something right, and maybe not spend lots of money where it is actually not necessary, and you can easily do something else, or just do some more efficient improvements with less effort. So that's what we are doing. Each of our partners has, so to say, a local advisor, and we work with them basically every day. Then I have a question actually to you. Have you ever sit in a wheelchair? Because if you haven't, do. It makes such a big difference. On this right picture, you can see it is me trying to climb a ramp. And as you can see, this slope, the steepness is not too high, actually. It's should be manageable, but I couldn't do it. So this is, then you realize, how important is every slope and every obstacle, actually. So this is my suggestion to you all: when you do something, try it yourself. And I also noticed some of the partners we had in some previous projects, for example, from Žemaitija National Park, Kairumune. And they also, like the director of the national park himself, he sits in a wheelchair and he tries his trail out, or platform, whatever, anything, because that's how you should do that. Either, for example, try to close your eyes and walk some stretch blind, so to say, and then you will notice how actually everything is important there, every route, 3 route. And here are some examples of befores and afters of what we've done in the project over the 2 years so far. I do hope you might find them inspiring and encouraging to do some small improvements also at your sites. So basically now just look, and I will quickly go through of what we have done. Let's start with the boardwalk. So in the project, we improved a number of boardwalks. As you can see here on the left side, there's how this boardwalk looked before. It was possible to accomplish, quite narrow, but surely not for all, and quite unsafe, I would say. So now you can see on the right picture that it is now spacious. It has exchange areas. It has a protective border. Basically, when you do or you reconstruct the boardwalk, the main thing is to keep in mind is that it should be at least 1.2 meters in width, and space between planks should not exceed 1 centimeter. That's the key, probably. Of course, look at the slopes as well. Here is one example of the boardwalk. This really represents that basically with no money and not much effort, you can make such a big difference when you just put protective borders on your existing boardwalk. It becomes already so much more safer for everyone. Here are some passes that we improved. As you can see, for example, on the left side, there was already a path which was well trodden already, but of course, quite difficult probably to drive in a wheelchair. And also with very simple gravel put on it, you can see actually how good this trail becomes. And I would say also it's pleasant for eye. It fits well into the landscape, and it's nice. Here is maybe a bit more work done, because as you can see on the left side, there were really challenging paths with a lot of slopes and lots of tree roots, and now also done into an accessible path. And I also wanted to show you that not just slopes are important, like steepness, but also the crossfall of the trail is important. As you can see that there is quite a dangerous one on the left side, and basically the recommendation is to have the crossfall of not more than 3%, and you can either strengthen it with a simple wooden plank, or as on the upper picture you can see there is a handrail also installed at 2 heights, and it is also good that you can use you can help yourself when you're being in a wheelchair, for example, or otherwise to accomplish the slope you can touch it, feel it, and like hold on and get either down or up this trail. We installed also at our trails benches from stretch to stretch. Basically, the recommendation is to have a bench in at least 300 meters along the trail. And also it is a good practice to have at least one handrail. So it is easier, for example, for a senior to grab it and to sit down or then sit up. We also installed a number of WCs or dry closets, accessible ones. And as someone, I think it was Sanna who said that it is not just the trail or the surface that you should look at, it is actually the whole chain that you should look at for being accessible for this person to actually enjoy being on the trail. Because when you are on the trail, you as just a simple person with no disability, you can, well, basically it's easy for you to deal with such things like getting to a toilet. But for people with disabilities, imagine that if there's no toilet in the nearest area, he will probably not choose to go to that trail because, well, he will just not manage to. So basically it's a set of facilities, including the parking lot, the toilet, the resting area, the signage system, info stands, and information on net, which is really important, so that can be studied beforehand. And yeah, that we try to follow in our project actually to deal with all this set of activities. So there are a few examples of these dry or WCs, water closets that we installed. And as you can see, it also takes little effort, it takes little money to install such a simple dry closet. And as you can see, it's of course important that there are these handrails so that person can help himself. And when looking at handrails, and if you install them at your sites, try to actually test them, like sit on them, because it's a usual problem, but basically that they are like kind of installed, but they are not practically usable sometimes because the bearing capacity is less than 70, recommended 70 kilograms, and they like break a lot. So yeah, that's one thing to look at. Then we installed a number of ramps, for example, for a wood storage cabin. And when you look at a resting area, and for example, a simple table, as you can see, it is, so to say, lengthened or extended on one side. And it is for a person in wheelchair to be able to drive below the surface of the table and enjoy food or some water together with his friends or family at one table. It is recommended that the surface of the table is at least, not at least, maximum 90 centimeters. And then we also installed a number of fishing sites. So 5 fishing sites were either newly created or upgraded in Saaremaa Island in Estonia. As you can see, there are some examples of how it looked before and how it looks now. We also installed it with a bench and small tables for fishing equipment, so that people in wheelchair can well, enjoy a little bit different also experience and have some leisure activities like fishing. And this is something that I really like. I really like different tactile figures and boards, and that is what we did a lot of in this project. Almost every our site is equipped with various tactile objects. When talking about tactile objects, they could be different. They could be from different materials. They can be different styles, modes, sizes. But basically what we try to follow is that they fit well into the topic of, or the thematics of that trail. For example, this trail, here's all these objects, wooden from wood, and they are like the insects or the animals that can be met in this specific park. In the middle, you can see this beetle, hermit beetle, which is perhaps one of the most protected insects in the whole world. Then there is a snail and an ant. And for example, this example is these hand-size birds, which are in their actual size, also on a trail where these birds can be met actually. And these are made from organic glass. I like this drosera very much, and this is made from metal with a nice fly on it. So this is also an option to do some tactile, nice tactile objects, so that people with visual impairment can actually touch how this species actually, well, look like. And here's one example of a tactile board, which is castle mount. As you know, Latvia, Lithuania were the Balts, and our ancestors lived in such castle mounts up to 12th and 13th of century. So it was also important for us to show these features, to not just show the trail line on an information board, but to also be able to show to people with visual impairment that they can feel how this castle mound actually comes up the ground, and what is the form of it. And this is made from concrete. And this is going to be installed to the existing information board. I have not yet the picture because the installation takes place today, and yeah, we do wait for the final picture and to see how it actually looks like. But basically, there are lots of other options that you can do these tactile objects from, and this is nowadays very popular, these 3D printing, which can be either plastic or even some other materials they are using as well. So there are lots of opportunities actually to do that. And now the signage system. In the project, for example, in Finland is a country that is working on accessibility for a long time already, and their nature parks are really kind of very much ahead of many other countries. But in Latvia and Estonia, we practically did not have any signage system for to show accessibility, and therefore we created like that from scratch. But we used as a basis a system that our Latvian Green movement, together with the Aperons, started in the coastal area. They started like giving flags to coastal sites that are either accessible or partly accessible. And partly accessible means basically that the trail or the site is a bit demanding and needs some help of an assistant. And they used colors, and for accessible site they used green, and for partly accessible they used yellow or orange. And we decided that it is actually a good something good that we could take into board, and we were like going ahead with this, and this is now how we made those signs for our trails in Latvia and Estonia. In Finland, we decided not to break the existing system, and it stayed the same. So yeah, basically, if you find this also for you appropriate, then you're welcome to use this this as well. So basically, we also then made some stickers to attach to existing signs and at trails where it is possible to improve the signage system because of these accessibility pictograms. And we also created standard design, so to say, for information boards. We wanted to use really something very simple and easy to understand, with a nice large map of the route line, which can be touchable, which could be tactile, and where you could actually feel how this route line goes along. And these are a few examples how we did these information stands. As you can see here, the route line, it has to be a little bit above the surface of the information board, and the recommended minimum is 1 millimeter, so that the person with the visual impairment can easily touch and understand this route line or any object basically which is on the map. And here's one example to how we used also this signage system colors in a trail. We have this one trail which is basically almost could be practically accomplished by a person in a wheelchair alone, but there are a few stretches that might be a bit more challenging, and we also mark these stretches with this orange color. And this is of course also tactile and touchable with different relief. This is something that we have not yet done, but we are now working on this. So we will do some tactile cards for each of our sites. And there are different techniques how you do it. You either can use a lacquer or some other materials. There are now modern printers that can actually do a lot of things. And I put this butterfly to show you that this is basically the different thickness of the material that you put on to allow a person with a visual impairment, or even just a child. Actually, children love to touch these details. They are of different thickness, and that is how you like program or make your card when you do that, or anything else basically, that you lay these different thickness layers on. Our guidebook. We are now almost done with the guidebook. It is going to be issued in summer. It will contain more than 100 accessible trails. On the right side of this guidebook, we will have the accessible or partly accessible trails, and on the left side, there are the trails that are nearby this accessible site, could not always be accessible or partly accessible, because we also try to include any other possible trails that might be of interest to anybody. And as you can see, we used a lot of, this is why I was saying that I do a lot of inspections and my partners do a lot of inspections. We collect really as much information as possible to show for these people that go to trails, so they can look beforehand and understand how actually appropriate this trail or site could be for them. So then we try to collect as many criteria as we can and describe them. So yeah, this is going to be a nice guidebook. It's going to be in English, in Latvian, in Estonian, and in Finnish languages. So whenever you see that, you're welcome to take it. It will be distributed to all tourism information centers in the core region of our countries. Of course, it will be electronically available on the websites as well. So yeah. And this is this MapArons platform.
One minute to summarize. Yeah, that's about the timing. Yeah.
I'm about to finish. Thank you.
Good.
And this is the MapArons platform that we created in the project. So you're welcome to visit MapArons EU, and we collected here also the same as in the guidebook, as many criteria for all accessible, partly accessible trails in our countries as we could. So this is a nice information source when you come actually to any destination. On this MapArons site, there is also an accessibility checklist for nature trails that we created in the project. So you're welcome to visit this accessibility section as well for more information on any accessibility criteria that you might find useful for you. And the last thing to finish with is these accessibility days that we are going to have in all our countries in August, approximately at the same time. And I encourage everyone in national parks, protected areas, to follow our example, so to say, and maybe it is also good to have such accessibility days from time to time at parks. Our idea is to invite people, families, where there is a person with a disability, because we found out that they are, afraid of going out. And also there was a question this to Sana, how to pursue these people to come out. And then we decided that we create such accessibility days so that they know that they are welcome at our sites and parks. And that would be all from my side. Thank you. And now I will ask Fernando, which helps us with this webinar, to show a nice video, which our partner, Estonian Environmental Board, prepared. This video shows the toolbox or the chest of senses that we created in the project. It is quite a modern and unique, innovative, I would say, tool to how to interpret nature, how to learn about nature. So let's see.
So this one. Here we have the chest of senses. As you can see, it has pockets. Every pocket has label on it. So here you can see that you can smell things. And here you can see that there's something to do with pop. Take something from here. The first one, you can smell it. Open it. And now I have also a picture card for you. That one you can feel as well. In the back of the picture, I also have the QR code, so I could get the sign language video. right back here is the number, and here is the number as well. You can match the number and see whose pubprint it is. So let's see. These pictures that are on this chest, they're structural, so you can feel them under your fingers. You can just try and figure it out. It comes in pieces. It's really simple, but just to understand how a bug is developing, the ice came and made the slope. In some years, in hundreds, thousands, the ice melted. So now we have a slope with water. The organic material piled up bit by bit. And now, instead of a slope, we have a bump. These are things that are useful for us.
Peat brackets.
Yes. The top bucket actually is for instructors. You can put here everything you need, the speaker, the picture cards, and also it has raincoat.
Thank you, Alice, for your presentation. Video is over and presentation as well. And as you raised the question during your presentation, here is just a very quick view about the audience experience with a wheelchair. But immediately there were the commentaries that for the empathy, it's good to try. And really, we need to be there in that position as planners, as practitioners, as politicians, and many other sides. But when planning such kind of activities, there need to be real contact with some experienced persons, because there are the differences who are using that and who just try to use it. Those were a few comments from the people. Small reflection on that from your side, and I have some few questions before we enter into discussion for about 10, maximum 15 minutes. So that's about the timing in general. We are 1.5 hours from the beginning, but another 10 minutes for the discussion, let's say. Alice, there was one question about the main challenge, why it's partly fragmented, why it's not involved. Is it the money thing and investments, because many things have been built earlier, not paying attention to that, so they should be rebuilt? Or this is the lack of knowledge, know-how, attention thing? How do you think from those two perspectives? Because it's not necessarily it should be more expensive. Many measures should be reasonable. But what is your experience so far?
Well, both, I would say, but probably also some kind of lack of knowledge, probably, because I think when you think of doing a trail or a boardwalk, there is no requirement like to do it accessible, and you as a person without that problem, you maybe do not even realize that that makes so much importance to all the other people, basically the most people.
Right. There was another question regarding how do you choose what kind of trails to improve? Is it a random choice, or do we have any, let's say, research? Where are more people and they like to use it, or those are more demanded? Are these really demand-based, or there are some random criteria?
Yeah, this is a really good question. Basically, I think we could be possible to use the demand-driven approach, because we've got visitor counters at a lot of our trails, but basically we already know which trails are demanded and which are not that demanded probably by people. But at the same time, trails are different and different experiences needed. So this is a bit quite of a tricky question actually to answer. But I can just say how we choose the trails in our project. We as an institution that is working with all municipalities in our region, we have our development plan, and there are some priorities included already, and also, of course, accessibility issues. And we meet with our representatives of municipalities from time to time. And this is basically what comes into attention when we speak about the actual needs and the actual projects that we are going to do or need to do. And these trails came up like that we realized that we will need this project, and we started to question our municipalities, where do you see these small nature accessibility improvements that could be done? And then of course we attracted accessibility experts, local ones, and we inspected those trails together. And there were some trails that we had to remove from the project, because as I said, not always a trail has to be accessible. That is really not a purpose to do. And also, people with disabilities, they also sometimes like challenging trails. That is also true. But there were some trails that were really complicated to deal with because of really high and long slopes. That's the biggest problem where you can see that there's no option to make it like a serpentine, and because of the relief, for example. So yeah, this is how we did it. But basically, of course, like this visitor counters, there is possibility to get the data and see the statistics, but of course it does not fix either you are in a wheelchair or you are not. So that is a bit of a challenge.
Thank you, Alice. There are more comments and more questions, but part of them you can reply afterwards. Somebody was asking, will this very valuable chat box content will be available? Yes, it will be available, but it will be sorted out. Where are the golden grains? And they will be put in the summary of the webinar and sent to emails to everybody, to the whole participant list. The same as recording of this, and that will be sent to those who registered but probably couldn't participate. There were a few very interesting comments, like about path grading system. You can follow the link pathforall.org.uk. There were some other comments that the first path for blind was opened in Italy in 1986. So it's a kind of history of being accessible already from the past century. But from those comments, and probably one question what was raised about those roads, forest roads and the nature trails, real paths, about holistic area as accessible, that we should tell it, even if we know that it's accessible, we should especially point out that information. There is some other comments from the public. So somebody who would like to comment or maybe make some other question, please raise your hand and we will let you speak. And Maurilio is already ready to speak. Please, we will switch you on.
Okay, good morning. Thank you very much. Very interesting indeed. And greetings from Rome, and a very sunny day. Just want to inform EUROPARC and all the friends that the regional park agency, when I was the chief of the regional park system of this region, has published a series of handbooks from the evaluation of accessibility of our protected areas to the training of park rangers and other environmental educators, how to deal, how to interact with the disabled or people having special needs. I will send to, I already sent to EUROPARC a series of links, and I will also attach here someone before we leave. But in any case, I wanted only to highlight one important thing. In approximately 11 years ago, we have adapted and then translated a very useful handbook for environmental education dedicated to children, disabled children, with several different disabilities or abilities. And there are 48 environmental education, more than environmental, naturalistic education rather than environmental. The sustainability was sorry, education for sustainable development was at the beginning, not very common at that time. But this handbook, I can put here a link. It's unfortunately is in Italian, but it can be easily translated. Is adapted from the handbook Access Nature is called, and in Italian Natura Accessibile, and adapted from a handbook issued by the National Wildlife Federation in the US. So you can find this probably in the website of the Federation, but you can download documents from the website of the Sibillini Mountains National Park. I will just pass here the info, okay? Thank you very much for very interesting webinar, and I hope that this webinars and opportunity to share experiences, but also visions and hopes, are quite really very, very, very important for all of us.
Thank you. Thank you. That's really about that. We are the learning community, and all the shares are appreciated. And those links, they definitely will come up in this summary of the webinar straight after. Thank you, Maurilio.
Thank you to you.
See, there's next Amigi would like to comment, please. It's your turn.
Thank you very much for giving me opportunities to be here. And I represent here Kosovo Institute for Nature Protection from Kosovo. And my question is, could you please, colleagues from Spain, can explain a little bit about zoning process in protected areas, especially in parks? How many zones are, and in which zones are allowed, like fishing, as I saw in a presentation, and too much long trails built on it, or to put in your website the methodology of zoning. How many zones do you have in your national park? Thank you.
Daphne, that was question to your side, and probably not all the technical details, but just roughly, and afterwards you can exchange with emails. But how many zones in your park and which are made accessible for people?
Sorry, if I can intervene, Daphne, I will translate the question to Daphne. Daphne está preguntando sobre cuántas zonas son accesibles dentro de los parques de la red, sobre zonificación, pero en este caso, bueno, creo que estaba preguntando un poco sobre diferentes usos, pero específicamente cuántas son accesibles.
Vale. Okay. Then in the Natural Parks Network, we have 12 different parks. Not all are have accessible itineraries or routes, but all of them has facilities, adapted information points with ramps of access, with adapted materials. So I cannot say a number exact. We have 12 parks, and the 12 have one or another thing that do available the accessibility, that people can go visit and have some information. But if you ask for a path for tracks, we only have in total eight accessible tracks in different parks. Yeah. I don't know if I am answering the question exactly, but
Daphne, you can still be in touch per emails to find each other if there will be more questions. But for the general public, I still have time for the last question or comment before we summarize, respecting the timing of Friday's afternoon. Any other comments or questions from the audience? Some 100 have left already, maybe too busy for next seminars or last works in the week.
It's Friday evening.
It's Friday evening. In some countries, like in Latvia, we have a working day tomorrow because we skipped this Monday, but I think that's national specific. If no more comments, no more bigger questions to raise it right now, then I should say some of the questions, they stayed still not answered, but as already agreed, the speakers, they will try with their teams, if that's a broader question, try to answer them in the summary of the webinar, which will be sent to everyone. Otherwise, I should say a lot of good words for the team, which has made this possible. First of all, thanks for EUROPARC for the platform and all the technical work, Fernando Filinos, and also Misha Kozminova. Thanks a lot for the project, Interreg Central Baltic project, Nature Access to All, because initiative for this topic came from your side as well, and especially for Alice Luse and Jurgis Briedis from Aperons and Nele Sober and Margit Turb. A lot of good things have been done, and from my side, I would say that we are ambassadors of these thematics. We should spread the word that is really actual, that it's not only one specific website where the accessible nature is informed, but we go more to the vision that everything is accessible and we have free choices what we would like to visit. So nature as accessible nature heritage for all of us. And thanks a lot for participating today. Thanks for good words, for questions, and also for those who have shared their experiences and their benchmark projects. Thank you for all of you, and nice Friday evening.